Hello and welcome. Well, the big news in the UK is, of course, the resignation of Morgan McSweeney, Keir Starmer's Chief of Staff. I've talked about Morgan McSweeney before, and indeed yesterday was commenting on this resignation. Since then, I've watched a very interesting video by Jacob Rees Mogg. Now, you may not be a fan of Jacob's, you may love Jacob, but I find it interesting when politicians, people who've been behind the scenes, who understand the mechanisms that are at play, albeit from a different party. Jacob is, of course, not a member of the Labour Party, but I find it fascinating when these people express their candid opinions, or as candid as I think we're likely to hear online. And, of course, he has a particular perspective. We must take that into account. But when I play you this snippet, part of a longer video, which if you're interested, of course I would encourage you to go and watch, just think about what he's saying, because I found this to be quite revelatory.
And of course he was the one who got rid of Sue Gray, the first Chief of Staff, because she wasn't doing things as well as he wanted. He probably wanted to be Chief of Staff all along, but he manoeuvred to get rid of her, and his closeness to Keir Starmer was such that he was able to do this.
Such was his power and influence that, according to Jacob Rees Mogg, he could get rid of this his predecessor.
And then, of course, he takes responsibility for the appointment of Peter Mandelson, to whom he was very close. And there's a...
Thought we should pause there. To whom he was very close. So, Morgan McSweeney, according to Jacob, was very close to Peter Mandelson. Now, as I've said, I'm not alone. What was the vetting process? You asked a few questions? Was that it? How did it go? Yeah, it does then begin to sound like, based on this testimony, that it was almost plausible deniability. As I've said, yeah, we'll have a bit of a chat. If anybody asks, you're out on a limb, Peter, I won't take responsibility for it. We'll just say that we did the due diligence. Issue with that is when it goes wrong, and when it goes wrong like this, people are going to look at the small print.
This again matters because Starmerism, the creation of a Starmer government, has Peter Mandelson's fingerprints all over it via McSweeney. It's not that Mandelson was just randomly chosen, having had no real connection with what Starmer was trying to do.
Yeah, right, okay. Now, again, I'm pausing just for the build-up here, because I think it's important just to highlight what he's just said. It wasn't that he was chosen at random. Now, I don't think it would be at random, but my take on that is it wasn't as I, maybe a few others thought, is they've looked around and for whatever reason thought, yeah, he'll fit the bill probably better than a few other people. We know it's a bit of a risk. It was always going to be a risk. But having made that assessment, we'll appoint him. Well, listen to this.
To be an ambassador because he was thought to be good at schmoozing around a major capital, he was selected partly as a reward for the contribution he had made to creating what you might call New Labour, this type of socialism that Starmer had become the front man for, even if he was never the man who really believed in it, because it doesn't seem that he really believes in anything.
So, he doesn't seem to really believe in anything. Yes, that looks like what we're seeing. But the mini bombshell there, to me at least, I have not heard this said out loud from someone who is such a prominent figure, is that it was a reward. Mandelson was appointed as a reward for his contribution to new Labour. And if that's true, if that's even remotely true, then once more it comes back to idiotic decision making. People, when people get into in-group, out-group, them and us, in this case, the small group of people around Keir and the others, in other words, anyone else, including the population, of course, they can begin to believe their own PR in that sense. They can become an echo chamber, a group of yes people. Isn't that a wizard wheeze? Shouldn't we do that? What could possibly go wrong? Because they didn't have the exposure, all this talk, and no doubt Keir Starmer talked about it before, the need for diversity and inclusion. Sounds like, in terms of diversity, one of the key important parts of it, people thinking differently from different perspectives. You didn't have that. Because if you had it, somebody would have said, what are you people doing? How could you possibly even consider this? Plus, it's pretty corrupt. Rewarding someone, putting them in, knowing there's a bit of a risk, but presuming stupidly that everything would be fine, because you wanted to just give them what? The reward of the kudos, of the position. This is, if true, if even slightly true, if this is in the mix, it is kind of disgusting on top of everything else. It is certainly extremely foolish, to say the least, and I would add dangerous, and for the country. But ultimately, it has been dangerous for them. It's blown up in their faces.